Hi, I'm Wells Brenner with Turn. If you've been following me in recent days, I think you all are aware that I've been retracing a trip that I took with my father, my late father, 10 years ago. In October of 2015, me and my dad went on a 4-day father-son road trip to revisit his roots. Today, I'm in Vicksburg. I'm actually at the base of the monument they call Remembering the Sacrifices. It's a beautiful monument, remembering the sacrifices, and it just seemed apropos of filming this episode here at the base of this monument because Vicksburg will always have a special place in my heart, and it's kind of apropos, but I think it's also prophetic. I think there's some symbolism in it. Long before I knew that I would ever take my dad back to his roots, so we're talking 20, 30 years ago, I always was drawn to this national park. I'm not a history buff, especially not a Civil War buff, but there was always something that grabbed my heart every time I would drive through this national park. And it did the same with my dad 10 years ago. It did the same when I was researching the book 4 years ago. And it still kind of grabbed my heart today. This is October the 31st. It's Halloween. So I want to kind of give you a recap before I kind of go maybe more into Vicksburg. As you all know from the last episode, I was going to head from Rosedale over to Cleveland and see if I could find the lady, meet with the lady that wrote me a beautiful card that left it under my door, some 4 years ago. After you've heard the story of me blowing through that intersection and thinking I was going to be a mass murderer or, be sent to prison for vehicular, manslaughter. But anyway, so I went into Cleveland. I went to the actual hotel and asked if there was any way that they could maybe connect me with maybe the previous ownership, the previous management company, and that was a no-go. So as I kind of stayed around the lobby, I met several people on the current staff, and they loved hearing my story about me retracing my trip 10 years later. They loved the story about me actually writing, a book. And so much so that I think one or two of them actually went online and bought the Kindle version. But anyway, they weren't familiar with the lady that I was pursuing. And so I just began to start using Facebook, Google, other sites. And I think I located this woman, but I'm not absolutely sure. And so, if you pay a small fee, you can find just about anything on anybody. And I found her mobile number. I found her physical address. And so I reached out to her on Facebook. I reached out to her through a text, through a mobile phone number. I actually went to her house. I know, call me crazy. But I went to her house, knocked on her door, and she didn't answer. So I don't know if I found the right lady. I'm not going to identify her. That's not fair. And obviously there's some confidentiality. But again, my whole heart was just to say thank you for this card, because it was just a jolt of hope on a day when I was not doing well. And then I wanted to honor her, by giving her her own copy of her book. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. I'm waiting to see if she responds via Facebook, if she responds to a text. I banged on some doors, neighbors on both sides. They weren't familiar with her, so I don't know. I actually think the woman that I have found and located on Facebook is the woman. But that picture on Facebook is like 6 years old. And I mean, I only remember, I was having just an absolutely meltdown. So I'm looking at this picture on Facebook and go, I kind of think that's her, but I don't know. So anyway, so after spending about 2-3 hours in Cleveland for the sole purpose of trying to locate her, I jumped on the car, headed down 61 and drove into Vicksburg and stayed in Vicksburg last night. And so I think the reason why Vicksburg is dear to me, and I think it's probably going to unfold, as I get older. But obviously, a little bit about the story. President Abraham Lincoln, he summoned his war generals and told them, gentlemen, Vicksburg is the key to winning this war. Vicksburg is the key to winning this war. And so fast forward, Grant takes 45,000 troops and they come into Vicksburg, and what becomes the 46 or 47-day siege where they sack Vicksburg. And the whole Civil War literally shifted on Vicksburg. Well, kind of using that same symbolism, it wasn't quite Vicksburg, it was more Parkin. And then we'll go south into Hermanville, which is like, I think, 45 minutes here. But this general vicinity was what God used for me and my dad to come to a truce in our own Civil War. So Vicksburg, again, there's just a lot of symbolism to it. We came here 10 years ago. It was on day 3. My dad's in a good mood. You know, again, we do Wynn, Parkin, Rosedale. And then we come into town and we don't have a reservation. I'm thinking, what's the big deal about having a reservation in Vicksburg? Alcorn State was playing Grambling. Grambling's in town. So there's Grambling people. Alcorn State is having their homecoming. And so you got people from all over the country that went to Alcorn State. They're in town. There's a Fortune like 50 company having a national sales meeting. There is no rooms. Truly, there's like no room in the inn. And in the grace of God, God provides us a hotel room, the last hotel room at hotel literally right across from the National Cemetery. So when we get in, we get moved in, Dad takes a treatment, cleans up, I clean up, I check email and do some things, return a few calls, and then we go out and have a bite to eat, and we just kind of reminisce of how the day went. Because, I mean, I got my bones jumped early Tuesday morning, and then we kind of work things out. We go to Wynn, and when I get to Wynn, when I get back into the car at Wynn, there's this tension, and then we know at Parkin, there's the blow up. Things kind of calm down, settle down. What I didn't tell you was north of Rosedale, good ways, but north of Rosedale is Tunica. And my dad wanted to stop in and play some slots and a little roulette in the Tunica casinos. And I told him no. I said, Dad, we came here to revisit your roots. Let's spend every minute of our time revisiting your roots. I want to go to the Tunica casinos. And so I had to pull up the side of the road. Unlike Parkin, we had about a 3 to 5 minute discussion, and I just shut it down. I said, we're not going. Well, you can just pull up and drop me off. I'll run in there and hit some slots, run the wheel a couple times, and you can take a nap in the car. I'm not taking a nap in the parking lot of a casino. No. So, again, we had that little riff we had to work through, and then we get into Vicksburg. We don't have a room. My dad is starting to freak out and panic. He needs a treatment. I get it, but I can't find a room. And they're talking about, like, you might have to go to Jackson. Jackson? It's like, I don't know. Haven't done the map lately, but Natchez had a couple rooms. It's 100 miles south. And I'm like, what? Or we got to try and go back to Greenville. That's like 100 miles. And so in the grace of God, God provides a room and all is well. So then the third day is Vicksburg. And it's day 5 here, but the day 3 in Vicksburg, we have a great breakfast and we come over here and we do the drive. Dad's favorite part of Vicksburg National Military Park is going back and looking at, the Cairo project, where the steamer, got torpedoed. He loved that part. And then I gotta be honest with you, we were both teary-eyed looking at all the different graves, the tombstones of all the different Union soldiers that were, killed in the war. I think there's, 15,000. So again, if you've read the book about Vicksburg, we're pulling out of the park. Literally right to pull out, and we stop at a stop sign. There's like a little shack, like a shack, park ranger shack, and there's some posts. We call them ballards, but there's some posts. And so we're sitting there, we're contemplating, are we going to go to Port Gibson? Or are we going to go to Hermanville? We're going to go to Natchez. And unbeknownst to me, we see these shadows flying over our car. And we're like, what is this? And we look up, we crane our necks, we look up, and we see this raptor that is unbelievable in size. And he's up there just doing some pirouette and silhouettes and pirouetting. And then we're just looking at it. And then all of a sudden he changes course, tucks his wings, tucks his talons, and it's like a dive bomber. He's coming right at us. And this thing is like a B-52. This is the scariest thing. And we're both sitting in the car, and he's on us before we have even a chance to react. Dad is in my passenger seat. He dives. He puts his head in my lap, and he dives. I got nowhere to go now. I'm trying to like slump. I think he's going to come right through the windshield. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not pulling your leg. It scared the living daylights out of both of us to the point where it's like clean up on aisle 5. No joke. Scared to death. We think, okay, he's past us. And then all of a sudden, we look up after we kind of like, what just happened? And we see him flying sideways like this by my car, around my car. And then he hits the afterburners and he goes right straight back up. And Dad's like, you want to stay and see what else he does? And I was like, well, yeah. But surely, we're thinking, surely he wouldn't do what he just did. Yeah, he looped around a couple of huge pine trees and then absolutely just came in. I'm not kidding you. It was just the most frightening thing. He looked like this time he wasn't going to come through the windshield. He was going to basically come and do a flyby. You know how those jets, those F-18, those Hornets, they'll fly by the tower, when they're out there on the carrier. That's what it looked like. That's what it felt like. This bird flew right by us sideways. And we're still like, are you kidding me? Like, what? What have we done? We've done nothing. We're just sitting here trying to enjoy and reminisce about the park and talking about, again, our truce and how our truce is holding. And then this bird comes around. And I thought he was going to fly right through us. He flies around. And surprisingly, he lands right on one of these wooden posts. It's kind of a half post. It looks like it was a post that maybe had a sign, and they just sawed it off. It's not really smooth. He's sitting right here, this big old bird. And Dad rolls on the window, and he's like wanting to reach out and touch the thing. Most beautiful bird, about 3 feet tall. Wound up being a golden eagle. And the colors on its nape, and I knew that God had sent that bird to us. Now, why? I was just kind of like, okay, what is this all about? Again, clean up in aisle 5. We were terrified. We didn't want to leave, but we felt like we should leave because we still got places to go, and we're trying to grab dinner down in Natchez. And yet, how many people have a flyby of a golden eagle? I mean, the golden eagle is like 2 feet from my dad. It's like right there. And so the bird stayed there. I put it in drive and just kind of drove down the little road. And then you kind of drive through a little bit of a neighborhood of some houses that's still on the property. And then you see the signage entering Vicksburg. And so then we go into Vicksburg and hang a right, and I don't even know what the road is at the moment. And we drive down into Port Gibson, and then we go to Hermanville, and then we go into Natchez, and you'll learn about all that on these later posts. But I love this place. I think it's, again, prophetic. I think it's symbolic of that truly me and my dad did have a civil war, and that it's really God's heart to end it. Because at the end of the day, they ended the Civil War because they fought over slavery, right? And there was The reason why I was so captured by this monument, remembering the sacrifices, we're all going to have to, a little spin on the word, but we're all going to have to sacrifice something if we're going to want to be restored. If reconciliation and redemption really matters to you, you're going to have to sacrifice something. You're going to have to go back, clean up some messes. You're going to have to forgive. In the case of me, I had bitterness. And like it says in the book of Hebrews, it defiles many. My wife and children were defiled. I think my mom and dad were defiled. I bet my brother and sister and their families were defiled. There were times when they really didn't enjoy being around me after coming away from dad or being in his presence or knowing that I was going to see dad. I was already kind of building up the walls like, I don't want to see this dude. This is my dad. I don't want to see this guy. And so there was already walls. I'm sure those walls could be felt, that vibe could be felt by others. So the scriptures are true. Bitterness defiles many. And I think what I love about Vicksburg is that it cost lives. I mean, we see Union, and we see rebels. We see their burial and all kinds of things. We hear about the history. But at the end of the day, this war had to be settled because we needed to set the captives free, the slaves free. Unbeknownst to me, by having this bitterness towards my dad, I was really enslaved to the enemy's ways. I wasn't really free. I was really a slave. I wasn't free. And so I didn't get free until me and my dad could come together and deal with our stuff. And I think in hindsight now, I've thought about the bird. The golden eagle, you can fact check me, but the golden eagle is either the biggest or second biggest raptor on the planet. And yet when I was looking at the bird on that post that day 10 years ago, it was like he was looking. He may have been looking at dad, but it was like he was looking right at me. And he was like, take courage. It's like, take courage of what? Take courage to turn. Take courage to turn. You're going to have to turn. Our nation's going to have courage to turn and repent of our ways and begin to be restored. If that's what matters to you. I think there's a lot of people listening on this video that want to see reconciliation. They want to see redemption. They want to see families restored. It's going to take a sacrifice. And then it's going to take a turn. So just know what you're facing. If that is something that you really want to do, and that's in your heart. And yet I believe with all my heart, like I said the other day, God is just looking for you to have a willing heart. To be willing. He'll turn the heart. You can't turn your heart, but God can turn it for you. And so that whole thing about going to dad and asking for forgiveness and repenting and not honoring, that was the beginning of my heart really turning towards my dad. I think he was buying into it at Parkin, but in Hermanville, or a day later, I think it's when he got the revelation that, I'm serious about this. I want to get right. I want to get real. I want to get right. I don't care what it costs me. I don't care about the sacrifice anymore. So I think that's everything I want to share with you about Vicksburg. It'll always be a special place because I think it shows me and reveals to me that there was a civil war. That's part of the history of our nation. There was a civil war in my relationship with my father. But it ended, and both of us are no longer slaves to the unforgiveness, the shame that we had put on one another. We both are free. Until next time, I'm Wells Brenner. Return.